I'd like to call this Tuesday, July 21st, 2020, Sylvania Board of Education meeting to order. Please, if you call the roll, please.
Vicki Donovan Lyle.
Here.
Julie Hoffman.
Here.
Shannon Sapersky.
Here.
Bruce Lanslutsky.
Here.
Greg Feller.
Here.
Thank you. Please stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is over to our side. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And this evening we will begin with you, Lisa.
Thank you. I would like to ask the board to approve on a consent agenda basis items 3.2 to 3.5. 3.2 is the Treasurer's Report for the month ending June 30th, 2020. 3.3, the availability of funds for then and now payments in excess of $3,000. 3.4, minutes of previous meetings, including the work session held on June 8th, the special meeting held on June 16th, and the regular meeting held on June 29th. And 3.5, the authorization of confirmation of transfers. It's return of advances from fiscal year 2020.
Move approval on a consent agenda basis, items 3.2 to 3.5.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? If you'll call roll, please.
Julie Hoffman.
Yes.
Bruce Lanslutsky.
Yes.
Vicki Donovan Lyle.
Yes.
Shannon Sapersky.
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Thank you. And with that, we are with you, Dr. Motley.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I am recommending to the board a couple of items tonight. The first one is an administrative contract amendment, which is item 4.1. We also have item 4.2, which is the substance abuse intervention, prevention, independent contract services. We also have item 4.3, which looks at our breakfast and lunch meal pricing for the upcoming school year. Please note that there is a slight increase for the upcoming school year of about 25 cents. We also have our final item, item 4.4, which looks at longevity pay for administrators, and those are my recommendations for this evening.
I'll move approval on a consent agenda basis, items 4.1 to 4.4. Can we do it as a consent? Lisa?
No, just 4.2.
Or do you want me to do it separately?
It's okay.
Okay, it's good.
I'll second. Any comments or questions? Would call the roll, please.
Julie Hoffman.
Yes.
Vicki Donovan Lyle.
Yes.
Shannon Sapersky.
Yes.
Bruce Lanslutsky.
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd like the board to consider on a consent agenda basis tonight items 5.2 through 5.10, 10, on the license side. Those items cover substitute resignations, staff to increase teaching, ESY services, that's the extended school year, extra duty, retirement, resignations, new teachers, intervention, and unpaid leave of absence.
I'll move approval on a consent agenda basis, items 5.2 to 5.1.
I'll second. Any comments or questions? See, a lot of work is being done by a lot of folks getting us ready back for return to school, which we look forward to hearing about shortly. No other comments or questions? If you call the roll, please.
Julie Hoffman.
Yes.
Shannon Sapersky.
Yes.
Vicki Donovan Lyle.
Yes.
Bruce Lanslutsky.
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Thank you. I'd also like the board to consider tonight on a consent agenda basis items 6.2 through 6.5. These items are on the classified side for unpaid leave of absence, resignations, personnel actions, and additional hours.
I'll move approval on a consent agenda basis, items 6.2 through 6.5.
I'll second. Any comments or questions? If you call the roll, please.
Julie Hoffman,
Yes.
Shannon Sapersky,
Yes.
Vicki Donovan Wild,
Yes.
Bruce Lenslinsky,
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any board committee reports or announcements other than the obvious? Anybody have anything that they want to share this evening? Okay. All right, public participation for non-agenda items, not an open meeting. And so now, if we can take a minute or two, I'd like to invite up Dan Greenberg, our president of our SEA, and Stella Weimer, our president of OC. If you'll come on up as the panelists and our colleagues. Ruslan and I will stay up here as representatives of the task force, and we will prepare for a presentation by Dr. Muttley on proposed restart for the 2021 school year. Does it help if we get the microphones closer to us?
The Facebook probably will be better because it's coming off an iPhone. We're using a webcam right now. And the mic on the webcam. That's all we got.
It's going to be our,
I think that microphone is probably closer, but she's, I think the platform will help.
Do I need to title this? Do I need to title this or anything?
I don't know.
Amy, do I need to add a description
Stella, if you want
to start the Facebook Live?
Is there a place for description?
Yeah.
Just put just put 7-21-20. See, we'll edit it later.
All right, I'm ready to start.
Are you going from there? Because I need to move this. Yeah, that's not going to work.
With this. Yeah.
We're ready when you are.
Does that look any better?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Sylvania Schools Board Update on our reset and restart plan for the fall of 2020. My name is Dr. Veronica Motley, and I will be presenting this evening as I am serving as acting superintendent for the Sylvania School District. We believe this presentation is quite important and imperative, as many of the details, I am confident, have been on the minds of not only our families, but also our students, our community members, and many of those who are involved with in the partnerships with the Sylvania schools. So with that, I wanted to talk about tonight's objective. The first objective is really to provide an overview of our task force committee, where we've been and where we are now. I want to say thank you to so many members of our learning community, including teachers, administrators, other workers in the district, OC workers that have provided input and suggestions and valuable information as we have worked to develop our plan for moving forward. We will also share with our families tonight the partnership and how that works with our local health department as we share our proposed plan in response to the health department's feedback that we received initially. We will also share about our plans that we will recommend to the Board of Education, which includes our hybrid model as well as our SALA model. And we will end our meeting with an opportunity to address parents and their questions and provide some answers, a Q&A to help inform our community about our next steps. So as a district, our teachers, faculty members, staff, administrators had quite a few considerations for reopening of schools.
We don't believe that we're on Facebook right now. I don't think that, I tried Facebook, this is. Listen. That's okay. I don't think anyone heard you. I was on a roll. I know.
Randy, I was gonna say, you want me to put out a question on Facebook?
No.
Okay.
Is there any, like, I mean, I'm on the Wi-Fi now.
Yeah, I can't do it. What's the Wi-Fi at all?
Right, so I can get that right.
You won't work to get on the Sylvania staff, you need to get on the Sylvania secure because of Facebook? I'm on.
Yeah, you can. I should have that.
Are you on it though?
I am, yes.
Randy, do you know that password?
We did have comments on YouTube, so we know that the parent people were commenting, we're on YouTube.
But if there's comments on Facebook, they must be able to hear.
No, there's not, there's no video.
Randy, you don't have another password to secure one?
No, let me see if I can find the one you sent me ages ago.
I just unmuted my.
Okay, so there is now a link in Facebook that says, thank you for tuning into the town hall. We're going to stay live on YouTube. Please use this link to watch the presentation at town hall. Click on it here.
How will they do their, like, will they do comments?
Yeah, comments are rolling in.
Okay, I'll say this.
Good evening, everyone. We experienced some technical difficulties, so we want to make sure we are able to provide this presentation for all those who are interested. So we are going to restart our Reset and Restart update for our board and our community. So thank you for all of you who are joining us live out in the community. As I, Dr. Veronica Motley, the Acting Superintendent for the Sylvania School District, will review our Reset and Restart plan for the upcoming school year. Before I jump into the details, I would like to thank those individuals who helped make this presentation a reality. I would like to thank the Task Force Committee and all of our teachers and OC employees and those who provided feedback so we could develop a strong plan for returning to school in the fall. I would also like to thank our Board of Education for this time tonight, as they feel it is imperative that we share with our community and our parents and our students our plans for rolling forward. And so we're going to jump right in. Tonight's objective, we will share an overview of the Task Force Committee's work, more specifically where we have been and where we are now. The task force worked diligently and have been meeting weekly, not only and sometimes twice a week based on committee work to make sense. I would like to say maybe late May or mid-May to make sure we were planning for returning for school in the fall. We will also share feedback and our work with, that includes our partnership with the Health Department of Lucas County and our proposed plan moving forward and the Health Department's feedback for our district. In addition, we will share our learning plans for the upcoming school year, and of course, as promised, we will have an opportunity for our parents to ask questions, and we will provide answers that will help inform all of our learning community of our next steps. So our considerations, the task force, the committee members of the task force, the Board of Education, our district administrators all had special considerations for reopening, which included not only our parents and guardians, but our staff, our community members, also taking into account the pieces and parts associated with our current health conditions and situation under COVID, the use of technology and how we can leverage technology to implement our instructional delivery, and most important, all of these components around how do we keep our students healthy and safe, as well as provide an engaging instruction or engaging learning opportunity for our students. So one commitment our district will make to our families. It is a promise and a commitment to you from our faculty and staff, from everyone who works to provide a quality learning environment, from our nutrition services, our teachers, our bus drivers, our custodians, our maintenance folks, including our Board of Education. We will provide a warm and friendly learning environment for our Sylvania students. Even during these most challenging times, I think it is more of a top priority to make sure that our students feel comfortable in a learning environment where we are caring and that we will support their needs socially and emotionally, as well as academically. So our task force, a little bit of background. The purpose of the task force was really to work together to really vet a number of ideas regarding implementation for education for the fall. What would the restart, reopening of schools look like? They were a think tank, if you will, that worked hard to provide recommendations for our Board of Education and making sure we did a 360 perspective of all those included that would return to school. Our participants invested an inordinate amount of time, and quite frankly, they're still continuing to work and still continuing to meet, as well as our subcommittees. And for those of you who are out in the community and received my letter and my communication, you may recall that our first recommendation to return to school was green. And green specifically was something we will address a little bit later, in that all students return to school every day. Other considerations of the task force, we understand that there are real tangible concerns in the well-being of our students and staff as priority of our parents and our community members. We understand and we have demonstrated the social, emotional, and physical detriment to students when they are not in school truly exist. But I will say, as the acting superintendent for the Sylvania schools, we have worked diligently to develop a plan that will help our students and our families adjust to a temporary new normal. And I do mean temporary because we are hopeful this too shall pass, and sooner than later. However, we also had to work through plans that allowed us to be flexible to respond to the changing conditions throughout our county and surrounding area. So as I mentioned previously, our initial goal was to have Sylvania students in school each day, all day, and this was our green plan. And you'll see on the screen there are several things that we considered that we were ready to roll with, including social distancing, reporting to school each and every day, and that green plan potentially had us suspending high school transportation. We submitted our plan to the health department and received feedback. And that feedback really caused me to press pause because what we realized is our plan is influenced and continues to be influenced by a number of factors. And you'll see those from changing health and safety guidelines from the initial start of our plan. Lucas County, I believe, might have been yellow, and currently we are in a state of red in regards to the number of COVID cases that have been recognized. In addition, we are constantly receiving updated guidance from not only the governor's office, but other state and county officials. We must consider our labor union partners, and we also must consider the resources that are available and feasible to purchase and safely use for our students. Teaching and learning is another consideration for the task force. We truly had a goal of providing in-person instruction for all students as much as possible, and that still is our goal. We want to provide an online option, and we also want to be prepared to return to remote learning at any time due to COVID. In regards to health and safety, we need to remember that we are seeking guidance from experts in the field. That's the Ohio Department of Health, the Ohio Department of Education, and the Ohio High School Athletic Association, in combination with the Toledo-Lucas County Health Department. We are also taking into consideration for our students their need for social, emotional learning supports to the furthest or fullest extent possible. Other considerations for our committee, we made sure that we had an opportunity to explore how a reopening plan would impact these areas, such as financial resources, child nutrition, student activities, facilities and grounds, and technology, to name a few. So as I previously stated, we initially presented a plan to our health department with a goal to go green, which was in my communication approximately 2 weeks ago. Again, different circumstances at that point in time. We had a plan to have all students report to school all day, every day. When we submitted our plan to the Lucas Health Department, we received feedback to improve our plan, to implement consistent social distancing, which is a concern because our primary concern is the ability to social distance, especially when you see the example that we have one high school that has 1,400 students plus staff. As a result, we advised our school leaders to incorporate social distancing to back our school plan and to back it into our school plan with what can we do now that we've received this feedback. We've also reviewed a number of professional recommendations from the agencies that you see listed. So where are we now, which is what's most important and on the minds of our parents and our students and our families. Well, we are here at tonight's town hall meeting. We want to share our proposed hybrid plan with our community. We want to address parent questions and concerns so that we may move forward with the recommendation for board approval. So moving forward, as a task force committee and as superintendent, we are recommending to the board for further consideration a hybrid plan, which we identify as yellow. This hybrid plan includes in-person and remote instruction. Please note, it is a version of our green plan because it is providing direct instruction in person, and it will be augmented by a learning management system. Our current selection is Schoolology, So you may want to Google that for those of you who are out there to make sure you can learn more about it. One of the pieces under the hybrid plan also is that we will implement higher expectations for our students in comparison to the spring. In the spring, the closing of schools was quite sprung upon us. We didn't have a lot of time to plan. I will tell you moving forward that we will have different and higher expectations for student learning, student engagement, school attendance, and instruction. Once again, we want to make sure our families and our community recognize that with our hybrid plan, we must submit this new plan to the Department of Health, and that's Lucas County Department of Health, regarding the health and safety of our plan. We initially, as I stated earlier, presented the green plan, received feedback, and had to take their feedback into consideration. Under the hybrid plan, you will note that we are proposing a student cohort rotation, where we have approximately 50% of our students reporting to school each day. These student cohorts exist of Group A reporting for 2 days, followed by Group B reporting for 2 days, and potentially a remote learning day, which would fall on the 5th day of the week. In regards to transportation, under green, there was a probability that we would have to suspend high school transportation. Under the yellow plan, it appears that all students will be able to benefit from district transportation. In regards to what will lunch look like for your child in the Sylvania schools, we will have a grab-and-go lunch available for our students. We will practice social distancing. For our elementary students and high school students, we will incorporate mask breaks when appropriate, and that will be for our students and staff. For elementary, we will have recess, which will be a little bit non-traditional from in the past, but we will have recess available for our students because that is a opportunity for our students to exercise, as well as it is an important contribution to their development. We do note that field trips will be suspended until further notice. So, yes. We are taking a little technical time out. No problem.
Is it even something that perhaps you could share with us that we each post on a platform? Yeah, I'm downloading it right now.
So we will put the slides up on, so the slides will be going up before the meeting are posted.
So I've been informed there may be some challenge in seeing our board presentation, the PowerPoint, and as we want to be responsive to make sure our parents have access to all of this information, so we are going to immediately post a link in order how to access this presentation. It is vital that our parents and our community members can see this information, as I believe it will address a lot of questions that are on the minds of our families. So please look for that link to come out shortly or momentarily. As I continue, looking at transportation, our number one priority is to keep families together. When siblings are traveling to school, we want siblings from the same household to travel to school on the same day. Also, we will develop a cohort A and cohort B roster, and we will be analyzing bus ridership. So that's our yellow plan. However, in combination with our yellow plan, we are also offering an orange option called SALA, which is 100% online. And I know I have heard quite a lot of feedback from folks about SALA and some concerns, so I do hope to clarify that information tonight. It's my understanding that our current enrollment from our parents in the community, we have over 100 students who have expressed an interest and have registered for our SALA program. Please note, you may be thinking SALA is the same program that is our virtual program for some of our students who are challenged at the high school to graduate on time. And I will tell you, this is not the same program. Our SALA program will be augmented by Sylvania teachers. In other words, Sylvania teachers will be engaging with our students who are participating in the SALA option. Again, with higher expectations, intervention, and enrichment. Now please note, I've heard a lot of questions coming my way about Edgenuity. Please note, Edgenuity is a curriculum. It is the what we teach. It involves state standards in what we teach. It is one method of curriculum. However, what's most important is we have experienced teachers in Sylvania that will be supporting our students, augmenting the Edgenuity curriculum. It will also be augmented by Schoolology, which is our learning management system, which has not been in place for our virtual learning academy within the district. So please note, SALA is quite different from what you may be familiar with in our high school program that is a virtual program for students who are struggling to get through school. Right now, SALA is a one-year commitment, and we've heard some feedback about exploring a semester commitment. I will say it is a bit of a challenge due to high school scheduling, but we are exploring that to see how we can make that happen and if it's feasible. We are also exploring a rolling enrollment window for those families who find themselves not being able to accommodate the hybrid model. It may just not meet the needs of some families. So we are looking at an additional enrollment window after school starts to see how we can accommodate those families if they find the yellow plan does not meet their needs. So additionally, we have one more plan. And folks, this is the remote 100% online plan. You're probably most familiar with this plan based on what you experienced in the spring, where 100% of our schooling will take place online for all students. Note, in the spring when we flipped to all remote learning, our expectations were a little lax because of the onset of the announcement and closing schools. And I will tell you, as a person who has a foot in 2 districts, that was something that took place statewide. Teachers were trying to plan on a dime, administrators were trying to adjust, families were trying to adjust, we were under lockdown. But I assure you, we have teachers who will be working diligently here, learning more and participating in curriculum development with the essential standards. We have teachers who will be learning the Schoolology, the learning management system. We are setting up new expectations for students and families and teachers in regards to the delivery of instruction, what attendance looks like, what grading looks like, how can students communicate with teachers, how can teachers communicate with families, and using Schoolology as a primary means of our instruction delivery program. So that's an overview of the program's considerations that we have right now moving forward and our recommendations to the Sylvania Board of Education. However, there are future considerations. I would like to say I, along with my colleagues, assistant superintendents, both of them joined me in a meeting today, both Tim and Keith, and we sat in a meeting for the Lucas County Health Department. And we learned quite a bit about future considerations. So right now, our current rating level is red, and cases continue to increase. It's my understanding in a conversation yesterday with the health department that over the weekend there were 165 new cases, not probable, but 165 new cases identified in Lucas County, and the cases are on the rise. Here's an example. Due to cases on the rise, I'm sure many of our parents are saying, well, what does it look like? What happens if there's a confirmed person in school that has a case of COVID? Here's an example of a decision tree that we are working with in our district. Please note, this is not our final school decision tree because we are working with our local health department and garnering their expertise in the development. But we will have a school decision tree that we will share with our families and our staff in regards to how do we have a confirmed person in our building and what our next steps will be to identify that person and reduce community spread and make sure that our students stay in a healthy environment. So we learned today, as recently as 12 noon, what happens when COVID comes to school. Again, our parents want to know. And there is a distinct difference, and I will let folks know that this came out of, I believe, the Ohio Health Department down in Columbus, in regards to some new regulations. I want you to note that isolation is different than quarantine. And those terms have been used synonymously, and they're not. Isolation is 10 days of self-isolation, 1 day fever-free without fever-reducing medication, and a student or a staff member may return to work. Quarantine is for an individual who is exposed. Again, isolation is for those who are sick. Quarantine is for an individual that is exposed. That's a 14-day self-quarantine with daily monitoring of symptoms and also a test for COVID if symptoms continue to develop. What are we responsible to do, and how will we help families understand what happens when COVID comes to school? Number one, we must have received notification of positive test results. We will also notify the health departments. Number three, we will identify close contacts of those students or staff members who were exposed to the positive individual. We will again notify parents and guardians of close contacts. Again, however, we will respect HIPAA protocol. Number five, we will provide the health department with a list of those close contacts as it is required, and the information will be conveyed securely. And then we will also send notice to our families that would be impacted by the case. We will send a notice of the confirmed case. So what happens when a student tests positive? Again, I'm sure this is a question on the minds of not only our families, but also our staff members. We will be required to work with the Lucas County Health Department. We will not be making these decisions in isolation. We have a strong partnership with the health department. We want to maintain and utilize their expertise to make sure we move forward appropriately and swiftly. School employees will immediately begin to notify our families of the exposure and the need to quarantine. Staff will begin to make arrangements with teachers, and teachers will then support students at home and utilizing remote Mondays or Fridays, that day is yet to be determined, to support those students in isolation. Also, that's a repeat slide, sorry about that. I wanted to provide an opportunity for a couple of definitions. School-based learning really takes place in a school. We know that to be our full green model as well as our yellow hybrid model. Again, I want to make everyone aware that when we are under the hybrid model, students and families must be prepared to return to a remote, which would be red, learning environment at any time due to COVID-19. Virtual learning is delivered virtually by Sylvania teachers and is augmented by an online learning experience or a content delivery software package, but again, supported by the expertise of our Sylvania teachers on a regular basis. Again, under this particular option, again, teachers are involved in providing a direct learning experience as well as a virtual learning experience. Finally, red, our remote learning. This is when our students and staff cannot provide instruction in a traditional classroom setting. Virtual learning would continue on that learning path during a school closure. In other words, if we are closed under red, similar to what we were in the spring, this will be our option to provide instruction for our students. Other future considerations as our task force continues to meet. We are already planning, believe it or not, and reviewing what will be the expectations and options for the high school exam schedules. Things like ACT Day. We are also, parents should be aware that any delayed starts that are currently on our school calendar, those have been suspended, and we are looking at the potential of using Schoolology to provide instruction during calamity days, snow days, fog days. So how can you help us? How can you support us as a district? Parents, legal guardians, authorized caregivers. We need your help. Please make sure that students with temperatures or your children with temperatures over 100 degrees should stay at home. Also note that children in grades 3 through 12 will be required to wear a mask based on the governor's recommendation. If you have a child in second grade or first grade that you would like to wear a mask or a shield, you may also take advantage of that opportunity. But students in grades 3 through 12 will be required to wear a mask or a shield. Your child will also be provided with a mask if you are not able to provide one for them. Also, we will not only discuss safety protocols with children, but we need your help as well at home. Please remember to encourage your children to wash their hands, cover their mouth when they cough or sneeze, and to use hand sanitizer and practice social distancing. Other things that you can do to help, and be on alert. We are still discussing what parent-teacher conferences will look like. Be on alert, you will receive a letter at a later date. Also, please continue to participate in meetings as requested by teachers and principals and other school personnel. Remember to follow social distancing protocols when you enter the buildings and work with our teachers and administrators. And also, again, if you would like, we encourage you to not come to the building for our meetings, but by all means, take advantage of using video technology or a telephone to conduct your meetings with staff. So what are some classroom expectations for our students? We will want our students to report directly to their classroom upon arrival to their school. We want them to we will provide a health check, as we will be taking temperatures for our students upon either their actually loading onto the bus or once they enter the school building. We're asking our students to wear a mask when they're required, when they're working one-on-one with a teacher or during small group instruction. We also want to help our students understand that we want them to maintain social distancing from their peers whenever possible. We want them to also sanitize their hands upon entering our classrooms. And an important note, there will be no sharing of supplies this year. Or I should state until further notice. Also, we want our students to practice social distancing in the hallways and common areas and offices. We want our students to follow all signage in the hallways, and when possible, potentially move down a specific identified direction or area of the hallway or stairs. And most importantly, follow the instructions provided by their school administrator. Our staff will also be providing social distancing for student desk and their own desk. Our staff will be wearing a face mask or a shield. We again will eliminate shared classroom materials until further notice. We will keep our doors open to maximize airflow. And again, our staff will ensure that classrooms are clean and disinfected on a daily basis and in between use. It looks like that's a repeat slide as well. For the sake of time, I'm going to breeze through a couple of these. We do have a partnership with the Toledo Health Department, so please note we will continue to work with them to receive feedback. Also, we will work together. Sylvania schools will work together to support our students with their social and emotional needs, as well as ensure compliance with our health monitoring protocols. We will establish a schedule for restroom breaks, and we will ensure that our classrooms are disinfected. We also will ensure that we will implement social distancing guidelines and proper signage for our students. And we will implement schedules to make sure that students are safe and not in common areas in large numbers. And that ends my board update presentation. We thank you for your attention. And now we have time for our Q&A session. So we look forward to answering the questions and addressing the concerns on the minds of our parents and families within the community. Thank you.
Do we have questions from the folks who've been watching? We'll take some of those initially before we turn our attention to some of the questions that have come in preemptively.
One of the questions was about the children in special education and addressing those with 504s and IEPs.
Yes, thank you. I would like to direct that question. Thank you. That's a very important question for our students with special needs. Tim, would you like to address that, please?
Yeah. Yes, I'll go ahead and do that. Thanks for that question, and it's also not a question that has been brought up recently or when the forum was announced and the opportunity for questions to be submitted. This is something that's been discussed and talked about even during the remote learning plan that was in place back in the spring, and it's something that the Disability Services Department, teachers, coordinators, related services have been focusing on. So, the main question, or to summarize the work that team has done is, what plan is in place for children with special needs who rely heavily on routine to succeed, and then how will we also support 504s and IEPs when students are at home on a yellow or red plan. And again, going back to that team and the work they've been involved on, and we've come up with this goal in this plan. And first of all, if your child is a student on an IEP that is currently in a special ed setting for more than 60% of the day, we're aiming to bring those students into school 4 days a week under the yellow plan, so all 4 days under the yellow plan, and even under the red plan for those students, unless there's a stay-at-home order in place. So we're looking at that option for those students under the yellow and red plans to bring them in so that their IEP can be accommodated. For students on IEP who are in general education setting for the majority of the day, again, each level has been working on this, whether it be primary, intermediate, junior high, or high school. They'll have within their master plan the schedule of the remote learning day times for students to receive direct instruction and services toward IEP goals and 504 plans. This will also take place for our related services, whether that be speech, occupational therapy, and physical therapy. And then the second part of that question is, how do we support 504s and IEPs when students are at home on the yellow and red plan? And depending on the child, intervention teachers will provide services in one or more of the following ways, and probably more than one of these ways. So with the remote learning process, they'll join general ed teachers in co-taught classes and make sure students can access accommodations and provide additional instruction based on their IEP. Those intervention specialists are looking to hold essential classes for content areas addressed in their IEP, and also schedule a time to provide virtual or small group instruction to address IEP goals and services. I do want to say it again, this is a concern, and it's a concern that it wasn't just brought up today or even previously, and it's something we need to focus on more heavily as a district. Working with the Disability Services Department, they want to make it very clear if you have specific questions about your child and the IEP goals and the needs that they have, don't hesitate to reach out to the case manager. And even at this time, feel free to reach out to the Disability Services Department and Rose Gafe, our Disability Services Director, if you have specific questions that you want answered on an individual basis. So just an update on special ed and IEPs and things of that nature.
Thank you, Tim, and I apologize to our community. I failed to introduce those individuals who are sitting around the table tonight and responding to the questions, so I apologize. We have Mr. Keith Limes, our Assistant Superintendent for Business Operations and Human Resources. We have Mr. Tim Zeroff, who is Assistant Superintendent for Academics, Teaching and Learning. We have Stella Weimer, who's here joining us this evening, who's President of our OPSI organization. Of course, we have our Madam President of the Board of Education, Vicki Donovan-Lyle. We have to my right, Board Member Ruslan Slusky. Thank you, Dr. Slusky. We have also, following around the corner here, we have Dan Greenberg. He is President of the Sylvania Educational Association. And we also have Lisa Shanks, who is our District Treasurer. So I just want to make sure everyone knows who's responding to their questions tonight, and if you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to those individuals. Amy, do we have an additional question that we need to address?
We do. There are a couple questions about the colors. The county is red. Does that mean that we are red? Can you clarify our color system versus the county? And how long are we committed to our yellow plan?
Absolutely. And I understand how that can be confusing, quite frankly. I will tell you the county health department has a different coloring system based upon the number of cases that are identified. I believe their system is, it might be yellow, I believe then it goes to orange, then I believe it goes to red, and then it goes to purple. All of which indicates an escalation in identified cases in the district or throughout the entire Lucas County. In regards to the Sylvania schools, we are looking more at a stoplight. We are looking at 3 colors. We have red, which is remote, completely 100% online. We have yellow, which is the hybrid model, which we are recommending at this time to the board, in which they will consider how to move forward. And then we also have green, which is traditional, going back to school every day, all day. A caveat to the stoplight is orange, which is our SALA program, which also allows us to offer an online opportunity for our parents that would have an opportunity to use online instruction for their students outside of remote learning.
Is there a way to know how much notice parents would have if we switch colors?
Certainly. And we've talked about that, because although we understand that we may have to pivot on the dime, or a dime, the lives of our parents and students and our families and our teachers do not. We will give fair notice to our families if we must see ourselves going from, example, green to a yellow, or a yellow to a red. We will give our parents ample warning. We are hopeful that we will be able to provide an opportunity for us to go from yellow to green, and make sure our families have plenty of time to make arrangements for childcare, transportation, and also our teachers to make adjustments in each school building.
Another thing that showed up in the comments is about masks. If we know yet if there is a specific requirement for masks, we know the grade levels would be 3 through 12, but shields, masks, how are we deciding what students are able to wear?
Absolutely. The question is regarding shields or masks and what grade levels. Right now, the governor has indicated that we would implement masks for grades 3 through 12, and all staff members should wear a mask. I actually questioned and had some folks in our department research if a shield was also comparable to wearing a mask. And we were, it was confirmed. We were notified that a shield is comparable to wearing a mask. We felt that masks can be an option for our students, and for some of our students, they may prefer a shield based on needs related to sensory. So we could definitely work with our parents, but a shield or a mask may be used in the school environment.
We have a question about in the buildings. What physical changes are happening in the buildings to reduce the spread of COVID?
Mr. Lyons, would you like to take that question, please?
Sure. So the question is about what physical changes have been made. Some of them are in the process still, but some things that will be different. One of the items is that the drinking fountains are closed. They'll either be covered, closed, turned off, something of that sort. So that means that students will have to provide water, bring their own water, things like that. So that information will be coming out. But drinking fountains has been a source, so that's one item. We have purchased plexiglass dividers. These are for the high traffic areas, for example, the offices, the cafeteria area, media centers, places like that. Those things, I believe, are to be delivered yet this week and will be installed shortly after. You'll see signage. Again, many of these things are being delivered in the very near future and have not been installed. We have some signage now, but we'll have some more permanent acrylic type signage in many of the, all of our buildings. Some will be district generic, some will be building specific, but you'll see things like floor stickers, wall stickers for reminders and those kinds of things in our buildings. Another physical thing, we began this process when we thought we were going to be on a green plan, and we spent a good deal of time in classrooms looking at classroom arrangements and how we can keep our students socially distanced at 6 feet. And those numbers were pretty low, and we realized that we really couldn't get more than about 12 or 14 students in a classroom, those ranges. So you'll see classroom configurations that have been changed to make those situations possible. Obviously, under the yellow plan, we'll be able to do some of these things, but If you've been out to any, to a restaurant that has dine-in or whatever, many times the booths are changed and turned opposite directions and things like that. So those will be some things that will be noticed that probably not a typical classroom setup. Some of the buildings that have the ability to do this will have one-way hallways and indoors and outdoors, exit doors and entrance doors to the locations that they can do that. Hand sanitizers. Many of our buildings already had hand sanitizers in every classroom, but I don't think people paid that much attention to the fact that they were even there. I certainly believe that that will be different this year. So hand sanitizers in all the classrooms, and then we also have some portable hand sanitizers that can be moved from one area to another depending on what the activities are. And also in our high traffic areas, we have hand sanitizers already available. The other thing, it's not so much a physical, but I think it's worth mentioning with this question, and that is our visitor policy and the guests to the buildings. Those will not be like they have been before. They will be very restricted, and the specifics will follow, but that's one of the recommendations that our health department has made, that we restrict the additional people in our building. So those are some of the things that you may notice at this time.
If I could just ask, my recollection is we had some conversation related to purchase of bottled water. I think we will have some provisions for bottled water in the buildings. And then also partitions, I think we have purchased as well, plastic partitions for offices.
Yeah, we have partitions on order, some for offices. We're exploring the different options for. We already have some dividers, what I would call testing dividers, that will help with some of our situations where we need more space. But also we are exploring what's the best option for dividers for students that they can see through, that where if a teacher wants to work with a couple of kids, they have dividers for the teacher and for the students as well. So.
And what would be a reasonable expectation for parents to, I assume we're going to communicate through the building, a building design or building layout if there's one way or however that looks?
Yes, definitely. Those should come in the orientation type packets and things like that are distributed.
Thank you.
If I may add, and I want to address a couple of questions as we watch the chat. I want to revisit why we left the green plan and why we chose to go to the yellow plan. It was based upon feedback that we received from the Lucas County Health Department in regards to social distancing. We could not ensure that if all our students reported to school each and every day, all day, we could not ensure to the greatest extent that we would be able to implement and maintain 6-foot social distancing protocols for our students and teachers. As a result of that feedback, we gave careful consideration. We know our parents want their children back in school, teachers want to teach. We want our students back in a traditional learning environment. We know that's optimal for their academic and social emotional development. However, we also have to balance that with keeping the safety and their well-being a #1 priority. What we do not want to become is a hot spot for our families and for our students. So by working together and looking at a different plan, we have elected to pivot from our green plan and move in a different direction. I also want you to know this plan will be evaluated along the way. I'm sure we will learn more and more as we do each and every week. And we may find ourselves in the next 4 weeks again learning more information and different protocols in which we will need to implement. But please know, we will continue to evaluate our decision and how we are implementing our plans so we can refine it and make sure that our students and our staff is safe while also providing a rigorous and caring learning environment. So I thought it was important to note that as well.
We have several questions about the Sylvania Alternative Learning Academy. Explain how it's a robust program for parents who do not want their children in school, how it's developmentally appropriate, and the engagement that Sylvania teachers have in it.
Absolutely. We are continuing to develop what SALA will look like based on the enrollment of students that we receive. I will tell you it is developmentally appropriate. However, it is the what. It is the standards. It is the curriculum that will be leveraged by our teachers with their personal connections with students. An opportunity to be tutored by our Sylvania teachers. An opportunity to get enrichment or to benefit from intervention from our Sylvania teachers. Our Sylvania teachers will be a point of contact, potentially lab hours for those students who are experiencing the SALA program. We do not see the SALA program an online, sit and get, independent learning program. That's different. We want our teachers to be involved with our students because we know our teachers provide an excellent education. And we would be remiss if we didn't take advantage of their expertise and their knowledge of content and their knowledge of grade appropriate instructional strategies to make sure our students receive the best education possible, and another option for our parents during COVID. This is our temporary new normal, and we want to be able to provide some of our parents with options and also having an opportunity to experience and stay in contact with the Sylvania teacher. Again, I need to note, SALA is designed and it will be tailored to grade appropriate instruction. What it may look like for a kindergartner will look totally different than what it does for a high school AP teacher, instructing our students and engaging with our students.
Just to follow up to that question, can you expand a little bit? You talked earlier about possibly doing a rolling enrollment, or maybe. Can you expand on that a little bit? What the thoughts are there?
Certainly. The question is, could I expand on the rolling enrollment window for SALA? I will say that it was brought to my attention that our registration for SALA currently takes place during the summer. And we rolled out the registration when a lot of folks were saying, but we don't even know what school is going to look like. How can I make this decision right here, right now? So in response to those parent concerns, we looked at first extending the window. And then another concern that was brought forth is, well, what happens if I start school, even at the point in time we were in green? And what happens if I start school under green and I still don't feel comfortable with the school learning environment? Can I have an opportunity to jump into SALA and make another option for our parents or for my child to learn, with the parents stating that? And with that, what we're looking at is having an enrollment window. Now that we have one, I believe, that may roll out, and it may conclude this Sunday or sometime next week, don't quote me, but I will say we're looking at potentially a 9-week rolling window, so you would have to start the school year in SALA, and then we would have another opportunity to potentially register for enrolling into SALA. Again, those details need to be ironed out, but we want to be able to accommodate our parents, and if a child doesn't feel comfortable and would be better suited learning at home, that's what's most important to us, to meet that child's needs. I do want to say, because we do have our union president here, Mr. Greenberg, that one of the pieces that we also have to consider in a rolling window is staffing. If we had an influx of students who choose to enroll, or families who choose to enroll in our SALA program, as I promised, we want Sylvania teachers engaging with those students. So in order to do that, we also need to make accommodations and work with our union leadership and identify teachers who can serve those students in SALA. So it is a multifaceted decision in order to bring that opportunity to fruition. But we're willing to do the work to see what we can do to make that happen.
Switching over to at-home days for students for yellow instead of SALA, taking into account parents' diverse work schedules, how will the virtual classroom meetings and online expectations be handled when the the students are expected to engage in learning through this new online platform in their Schoology.
Mr. Greenberg, could you help us with that?
Sure, I can help out with that. I think that we're all aware in Sylvania schools that the parents have their different circumstances in everyone's home life, and we want to make sure to be accommodating to that, to make sure that learning is accessible for all students. And we've been doing a lot of discussions throughout the summer about how we can do that, how we can set standards and clear expectations for students to make sure that we have rigorous courses throughout the year, that learning is taking place for all of our students, but also understanding that not every student will access learning in the same way. Really, in terms, we continue to iron out the specifics of that. I can say that those specifics are going to be different at each grade level and each grade band. They're going to be age appropriate and developmentally appropriate. Obviously, what's important and developmentally appropriate for a student in first grade is going to be different than a high school student. And we're working on those kind of plans to make sure that there is that rigor. There are those key expectations, or the expectations are outlined for parents and for students, and that we give kids multiple ways to access the learning. For me, one of the pieces that I think has been critical so far as we've gone through this process throughout the summer is that it's really been a partnership between our administration, our school board, and our teachers. We've done a lot of work as subcommittees and delving into these topics, and it's work that has been very good that we've been able to do collaboratively. I know that is not a foregone conclusion in every school district as they come up with their plans, and so I want to reassure the families in Sylvania that there will be buy-in from the teachers and from all other stakeholders in the district as we set those plans forward.
Going back to health and safety in the buildings, what sanitizing procedures are in place and how often?
Yeah, Stella's actually a custodian in one of our buildings, so I think it makes sense for her to start this anyway. Stella?
Yes. Okay. Classrooms are cleaned every night, even before the COVID. During flu season, we kind of do a heightened cleaning where every desk is cleaned every night, things are disinfected. We have what we call a 360 machine. Should a classroom have an overwhelming amount of kids sick, we can 360 that. It's just going to be heightened a little bit more. Bathrooms are going to be cleaned every 90 minutes. Classrooms are going to be cleaned every opportunity we can get into them to clean them. Hand sanitizers, as Keith said, will be in every classroom, in the hallways, in common areas. It's just going to be a whole lot of cleaning all day long.
Thanks, Stella. Also, I know that we have done some trials with some antimicrobial, I'll call it, similar to our 360 machines that are a micro mist that disinfect places that just a rag or things like that can't get to. So we do have those machines. We have them in every building. We have one at the transportation department as well. So those get used, and we're experimenting with some of this stuff with our athletics and that are taking place right now in the summer, with how that works and how that looks when students are at least around for us to be able to try some of those things. So we're, like everything else, we're learning as we go, and we have some opportunities for some products. Getting the products are a challenge. The nice thing is we have the tools for the products, and many of the districts don't even have the machines to use things like the 360 and that kind of stuff. So we're working, making sure things are sanitized.
I just want to follow up on that real quick as well, and I know some of the questions have come through about, what days of the week will Group A be going versus Group B, and what's going to be our remote learning day. How is that going to work? First of all, that is still in the works. We're hoping to have that communication to you once we get those groupings solidified as soon as possible. But one of the days that was discussed, and I followed up with our custodial supervisor, Dawn Watson, again today. I've talked to her twice about it. And I've read about this in other districts where Wednesday was that day of no new instruction, so it can be used as a deep cleaning day. Dawn said it to me today, and I know Stella just talked about it as well. Every day will be a deep cleaning day. The difference between that that day of no new instruction or that remote learning day is that deep cleaning can take place, when students aren't in the building as well. The hours will just be different, but just want to make sure that that was clarified. Every day will be a deep cleaning day, and we're also working with our high school students and secondary students in the junior high because they switch classes or more than just one student will be sitting at that desk throughout the day. How does that work if it's going to be at the end of the day? We are going to work with those students where they're going to do some self-cleaning of those desks with a Clorox wipe at the end of each class period. Again, those plans still need to be finalized, but those are just some options that are in the works, and I want to make sure that was clarified to this group.
If I may also address another concern, I've seen a couple of folks posting in the chat in regards to athletics, band, and choir. And Keith and Tim, as I mentioned earlier, sat in a meeting today with the Lucas County Health Department in regards to their recommendations. We've also heard that there will be an announcement made, I believe, this week from Governor DeWine in regards to some of these activities. Again, we are in a position of responding to a number of officials that are giving us guidance and direction in how to proceed in some of these areas while keeping our students and staff safe. So for example, one recommendation for band was to have the band practice outside. Of course, the question is what happens during inclement weather, and we are looking to figure out what we would want to do. We want our band students to have full advantage of band camp, but again, also recognizing this is a temporary new normal. And I'm hopeful that moving forward, this is the first, only, and last time our band students will experience something like this. We are also supposed to receive additional guidance from the Ohio High School Athletic Association in regards to the start of athletics for the school year, and including contact and non-contact sports. So it's, as I share with you, I ask our learning community to be patient with us, because it appears almost each and every week we are receiving new guidance. In some aspects, it augments and adds to the guidance we received previously, and in some instances, it sends us in a totally different direction where we must pivot and develop an entirely different plan. So we do ask for your patience. We are really working diligently to make sure we're doing the best we can, and actually more than the best we can. We will present an optimal and learning environment, an athletic environment for our students, but we have been put on alert that there will be two additional announcements this week for school districts across the state in regards to how to proceed with some of those activities.
If I could just add to that, we early in our being at home, we started to work on what does it look like when the students do return for things like athletic training and things like that. And so we have a district guideline. It's Sylvania Schools district summer activities guidelines. That is an overarching list of requirements if you are going to have, whether it's athletics or any kind of activity in our building. And then each building under that had their own guidelines that fell under our district guidelines that was specific to their buildings. And then the coaches or advisors, whoever were asking or requesting that the kids come in, they had to submit a plan as well that had to be approved by their principal under all of these. So they've done an incredibly good job. It's been a good test for us for some of these other questions, like, how do we do temperatures? How is it recorded? They take attendance every single day so that the contact tracing is possible. So those kind of things are happening right now, and it's a nice practice run for us.
We also had questions submitted this week about for our treasurer. Where are we making cuts or cost avoidance during this time?
That's a good question. I'll go back and provide an overview of where we've come since COVID hit in March of 2020. When COVID hit and shut down the economy, the state was forced to cut schools. Sylvania's share of that cut was $1.7 million in 19-20, and then another $1.7 million in the upcoming school year, as a combined total of $3.4 million. We did receive some federal funding through the CARES Act, and then we also were able to offset some of that loss through the closure of the schools, and that was through less costs in substitute employees, bus fuel, utilities. We were able to renegotiate some of our contracts, our operational contracts and agreements. And we did have some increased costs with our food service, but the net loss, or the net amount that we have to overcome is $2.2 million for last year and this year combined, $2.2 million. Now, with that being said, every year when we start to plan for our staffing for the upcoming school year, we do so by aligning our staff to enrollment. That happens every year. It's a normal exercise. This year, administrators were particularly careful to and mindful of the funding reduction. So the amount of positions that we were able to realize or not fill for next year on the instructional side was about $535,000. And on the operational side, it was $260,000. So we were able to make up almost $800,000 of that loss. Some of the cost avoidance are preventative measures, and some we're able to measure and quantify. So some of the cost avoidance measures that we can quantify, we've limited overtime to emergency situations, as we did back in March when COVID hit. We've revisited and tightened up forced major language in existing contracts. As a preventative measure, may not happen, but it provides extra protection and reduces the risk to the board. We reached an agreement with the Sylvania Education Association on a prorated structure for coaching and academic supplemental contracts in the event COVID forces another school closure or cancels athletic seasons. Some of the, those are the cost avoidance that cannot be measured. Some of the measures that can be measured, we held on filling positions that were previously approved for the upcoming year. This totaled a cost savings of $280,000. So in all, we saved about $1 million between cost avoidance and those that we can realize. This was under the green plan. Now that we've transitioned to a yellow plan, we'll go back and revisit and make adjustments, and that information will be forthcoming at a later meeting.
We had new parents asking questions about what kindergarten might look like this year. So can you address that, please?
Absolutely. We have a new graduating class coming into Sylvania. It's only about 18 years later, though. But our youngest Sylvanians, we want to make sure that we take care of them. This is their first learning experience potentially outside of preschool. So we want to make sure that we welcome our kindergartners with open arms, warm, friendly, caring, but in a responsible manner. We want to make this a positive learning experience for our youngest students. And in doing so, we will work with our parents. We will continue to have transitions, a staggered start for our kiddos and their families, so they may make an adjustment to entering school. Although it may look different than in the past, we're going to take an extra effort to make sure we comfort our students, our kindergartners, as they enter their first day of school age years. That will be from now until graduation and here in the Sylvania schools. So we will be taking extra effort to address the students' social and emotional needs, making sure they feel comfortable communicating with parents, because we want them to be successful even during these unique times.
Are the buildings addressing the traffic as we have more parents dropping off and picking up mornings and afternoons during this time?
Yes. And I will defer to Mr. Limes, who will talk about the operational side of traffic at each of our school buildings, because I do believe our principals will be working closely with him, as each school has a different dynamic to deal with in regards to traffic situations.
Yeah, they really do. A all 12 of our buildings are not alike. And so they've all developed traffic patterns and have adapted and changed their traffic patterns. In recent years, we've done some repaving in some of the schools to make the traffic patterns better and safer. So that is, that will continue. Based on our requirements for checking students in, they could be changed slightly one direction or the other. We may use a different door to make the traffic flow go better, those kinds of things, but those are best left to the people who know their building best, and that's the administrators in that building. So we'll work closely, and those things will be also communicated to the students and parents through the orientation type packets.
There are questions about the yellow schedule right now, whether it's set and what we can expect after this meeting in the coming 4 weeks really before school starts.
That's a very valid question. Right now, what the schedule looks like, and what has been a recommendation from our task force, from SEA, and our building administrators, that we explore an AABB with a remote learning day. We are looking to make that recommendation to the board sooner than later, and my goal would be within the next week. I will tell you, I am relocating to the district, so I carry some of this burden, so I may be a little bit of the holdup, but we will do a virtual meeting to make sure we get this information out to our parents once it's approved. We are finalizing details for classroom instruction in regards to what the cohort groups look like. I will say we have been meeting diligently, and we will have the first list ready to go for our building administrators to look at by no later than this Friday. From there, we will be able to submit what that information looks like to the board and get their approval and communicate with parents. I will say, as the acting superintendent of the Sylvania schools, I want our parents to have this information sooner than later, and I do mean by before the end of July, because school is starting quickly, and our parents need to be able to prepare their work schedules, their child care, and what that can look like. Some information may be rolling out in segments as it becomes available. As I mentioned, we do have to submit this plan to the health department. However, I am confident with our recent feedback that it should be approved to move forward. But please stay tuned, because it will be rolling quickly once we get that approval and feedback back in our hands. So I want our parents to be prepared. I would say the latest would be the end of July, the last day, July 31st. But stay tuned, because more information may be released as early as next Monday or Tuesday. I know that's the desire of the board. Am I correct?
Yes, I think talking to each of my colleagues about availability, I think next Tuesday was available for everybody to meet either in person or remotely, so July 28th for our next board meeting. Any updates that we can have as it relates to return to school, as it relates to memorandums of understanding, as it relates to financial implications, all of those pieces, that gives everyone a few days to absorb all the information that you provided, and everybody the questions that have been answered, as well as to continue to take feedback from our constituents as it relates to the proposals that we have. So I would ask my colleagues to pencil in July 28th in the evening for our next meeting to get together to address all of the future matters, which will be within the time constraints that you would appreciate before the end of the month.
Absolutely. Thank you, Board President Donovan Lyle. Is that, you all good?
The clarification I think they're looking for on yellow was the 2 days that students are at home. If we know what kind of expectations we would have for the students who are home on yellow days.
Absolutely. So what are the learning expectations while students are at home? The one good thing that looks different from the spring, and I have to emphasize what we didn't have in place, is a learning management system. And what the learning management system will allow our teachers to do is to develop some level of extension activities while children may not be in the classroom. That may be intervention, that may be reviewing of the work that was done in the class. We are looking at how we can have perhaps an opportunity for our parents to log in and meet with the teacher or review a previously reported lesson. We're exploring that. We do not want those days to be vacation days. We want those days to be in student engagement days, and we want those to be opportunities to continue to have our students learn. Again, we don't want teachers, or rather students, sitting at home those 2 days and saying, I have nothing to do. There will be additional assignments that are pushed out that would augment the learning that took place the 2 days previously. So for example, in a learning management system, and for those of you out in the community or who are listening to this presentation or listening to it at a later date, if you've taken an online class at a college or university, a lot of times there are assignments that are assigned for students to do when they're outside of the classroom. It may look like homework assignments in a traditional environment, but if I am in a 8th grade classroom and I'm meeting with my teacher Monday and Tuesday, Thursday and Friday I will have assignments that I'm expected to complete, and I can still reach out to my classroom teacher. I can still send them an email and say I don't understand. I can still have an opportunity to ask for help, and then also support that teacher in helping that child understand the content or enrich the content. But I will tell you, those 2 extra days are an extension of the classroom. We definitely see it as an extended learning opportunity, and we will look at what that looks like development in a developmentally appropriate manner. It will look definitely different for a kindergartner, again, compared to a high school senior.
Does that sum up the questions we've received, live feedback, mostly?
There are a lot of questions, and a lot came in over the last week. I know that we can't answer all of them tonight, mostly because, not all because of time, but some of them just take time to answer. Some of them are very specific to individual family needs, and so those families may need to reach out specifically to ask their question to SALA based on their student's scenario.
And we certainly understand and appreciate that there may be individual needs. I think those will become clearer once we have definite plans, and that's why it's the goal to have very specific and definite plans, instructions unique to each building, but unique to the various levels of education that we can address with each family on a needs basis.
And if I may add a closing point, I do want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I want to thank, of course, our Board of Education for presenting this town hall meeting and this opportunity to educate and inform our community. I would like to thank both of our union presidents for being here and helping to address the questions and having a presence at the table to let you know that we are working together in order to come up with the best solution possible for our families. Many of our staff members who have participated in our committees are also parents in our community. So we don't lose the parental perspective. We're able to have that at the table while we are working through our plans. I want to say thank you to our central office staff who has been putting in endless hours. And I also want to thank our moderators tonight, Brandy and Amy, doing an excellent job. Brandy, I've been watching the comments and you're being so responsive. You're typing feverishly over there, so thank you for your work as well. And our IT folks that helped present this information to make it public. I do ask for our families who have additional questions. I encourage you to reach out to your building principals, reach out to folks here at the board office, especially if you have a specific question about the needs of your family, or if you have specific health concerns and are questioning what would be the best route for my family. We are happy to help you, to inform you, to help make the best decisions possible. I would also, from a partnership perspective, on behalf of our health department, they too are open to receiving phone calls and having parents reach out to them to receive additional information and recommendations that would meet their family's needs and discuss specific concerns. If you have a situation in your home that you are wondering what's the best option for you and your family, they welcome the communication. They want to support our families and our community. So please take advantage of that as well, because they are helping us. And on a final note, please know we will get through this together, and I know it sounds cliche, but we will get through this temporary new normal. The one thing we have is a tradition of excellence in Sylvania. We will continue this, and we will be on the other side of this soon. So we ask you for your patience. We ask you for your flexibility and understanding when we may need to pivot, but we will get through this. And I just appreciate your support, as I know the Board of Education does, and our team of teachers and support staff and everyone who works together to provide the best education possible for our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Motley. I appreciate all of those comments, and those are echoed by my colleagues. I would tell anyone who's looking to see next steps, as we discussed, July 28th, I would expect that we will have a recommendation for approval to the board, continue the comments, questions, and concerns to all of us. And with that, if there's no other further items on the agenda, I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Vicki Donovan-Lyle.
Yes.
Julie Hoffman.
Yes.
Shannon Sapersky.
Yes.
Bruce Lenslinsky.
Yes.
Greg Feller.
Yes.
Concludes our meeting. Thank you for attending.